local Ukrainian.
So this is a local Ukrainian. And we want to know, what do you think about the situation?
Hey everybody, how's it going? It's J-Tree here, and I am in Kiev, Ukraine. I recently posted a video talking about the situation here, and the response to that video was, well, nothing like I expected. It got about 120,000 views in about 4 days.
This is not my job. I'm not getting paid any money for these videos. So I feel like it's right to talk to the people that might have the right information. It's important that we give everyone's truth validity. And he is a freelance journalist here, getting information from pretty reliable sources. So I think it's pretty important that we consider his ideas and opinions on this matter.
As a result of that, I made a response asking you guys, what questions do you have for Ukraine? Before releasing that video, what I'd really like to do is, I would like to show you some interviews that I did with different people from international media outlets.
I've been very blessed to meet some wonderful journalists here in Ukraine.
So, here you go for you today, interviews with international media in Kiev, Ukraine.
My question is, what do you think about the situation with Ukraine and Russia currently?
Thank you guys for watching these videos. If you could hit that like and subscribe button, I would really appreciate it.
I'm from Australia, and I'm a freelance journalist who's just arrived in Kiev, Ukraine, to cover the situation here. So yeah, the plan is to do some interviews here in Kiev, and then my colleague and I are going to venture out to the eastern parts of Ukraine.
Hey, thanks for that, Jay. My name is Neil Hauer. I'm a Canadian freelance journalist. I cover the former Soviet Union. I speak Russian and pretty good Armenian. I lived in Georgia and Armenia for the last 5 years, and right now here in Ukraine to make some reporting on the situation.
How's everybody going?
Would you like to introduce yourself, my friend?
Hi, my name's Tom Much. I'm a journalist from New Zealand, and I specialise mostly in covering conflicts and humanitarian issues around the world. I've worked in places such as Afghanistan, Syria, Nagorno-Karabakh, and I'm now here to cover the conflict in Ukraine.
Now I want to ask you, my friend, many people in Canada are concerned about the current situation here. There's a lot of media outcry, and obviously just because of our relation to Ukraine and the brotherhood that Canada and Ukraine shares, people are very invested in this current situation. I want to know, how do you feel about it? What kind of fears do you have? What kind of feelings do you have around this situation in general?
I mean, it's calm right now. That's definitely true. I mean, you know, here we are in Kiev. There's obviously nothing, no bombs falling or anything. But there is a lot going on just outside the border, a lot of buildup over the last couple of months by Russia, moving every week, you know, dozens, hundreds of military vehicles closer all the time. And so, you know, nothing's going on right now, but I think the general consensus among Ukraine watchers is that around the time of the end of the Olympics, the 20th or something, there's going to probably will be something that happens. So I'm pretty concerned.
What I want to ask you, Tom, is based on what you're hearing in the information here, how is the danger of the situation in Ukraine for us here in more western part in Kiev? Are we in any danger, in your opinion, or from your experience?
Okay, so look, the situation in the west of Ukraine, cities like Kiev, Lviv, or even at the moment cities like Kharkiv in the east, it's completely safe. Like right here, everybody is going about their day as normal. You know, there's no danger on the streets here whatsoever. I've heard that people have this idea that there's like tanks rolling towards Kiev already. None of that is true. However, that doesn't mean that there is not a decent chance that there could be an escalation of the conflict in the east, or even potentially in the next coming months, a full-scale invasion. It's very difficult to say what will happen.
I'm Canadian, and in Canada there's a little bit of concern going on about the situation here. I feel that Western media is currently portraying this as an extremely dangerous, hostile situation, and many people are telling me they believe a World War III is about to ensue. What I want to ask you is what are your predictions for the future of the conflict that exists between Russia and the Ukraine?
Well, I can't pretend to have all the answers. I don't think anybody really has all the answers. There's probably one person who does know what could happen, and that person is probably in Moscow right now. So I don't think anyone can say with any certainty what's going to play out. We just don't know yet.
If there is something that happens, very likely, if you could predict what was going to happen, what would be some ideas or predictions you've had based on history and information that you've received?
I mean, it's hard to say what exactly could happen. I mean, it's not a question of it's not a question of what the Russians can do, because they can do anything militarily, but it's a question of what they will want to do. But I think, that they have moved so much stuff into position that the very least is going to be some sort of big, very serious offense. I think in honesty at this point it'll probably be, I don't want to sound sensationalist or anything, but I really do think it'll be something like the worst fighting in Europe since the end of World War II.
Personally speaking, in regards to your family and their concern for you and what the media is portraying in your country, what are you saying to your family? What are you saying to the people that love you, that are scared about your presence here in Ukraine?
Well, I'd just say to them, don't panic, don't worry. This is what we do for a living. It comes with the territory. That means going to hostile environments. And fortunately, I've been doing this for a long time now, so I'm pretty well adjusted to it. And I would just say, be calm and don't worry.
Do you feel in danger at all?
I mean, personally, maybe a tiny bit, but not really. I mean, again, this is my job, this is what we do for a living, so we don't want to complain that we feel in danger, especially as Western journalists. Usually, if something goes wrong, we can get a plane out of here, We're not like local journalists or even local people who are trapped here and have to live their lives there. So I don't want to sit here and be like, yes, I'm so scared, my job is so difficult, when the people who live here, they have a much worse time of it than we do.
Any other information you can give us, what would it be?
Well, to be honest, I've really only been on the ground 5 days, so I'd prefer if you could ask me in a week.
So maybe what we'll do is in a week, in the eastern part of Ukraine, I will meet my friend here. I'll meet the other journalists that I've recently met, and some of them are working for some of the more major news outlets in the world, and I will ask you again. And I will ask our Canadian friend, and we'll update the situation.
Good deal.
Yeah, okay.
Good deal.
Man, it's so nice to meet you. I really appreciate you taking this time. And I really want you all to know that this isn't about how I feel about Ukraine or how he feels about Ukraine. It's about everyone's ideas about this situation. Now, all I want to reveal to you is how we feel. Thank you so much, man.
My pleasure, Jay.
Yeah.
Things can be very, very, very calm one day, and then they can escalate virtually overnight.
Yeah, I believe that this can be a truth even. I mean, we could be in New York right now, and it's possible there could be another terrorist attack there that occurred, right? It can happen anywhere. It's not necessarily, but obviously in these regions, it's probably a little bit more likely that something of a war conflict could happen. But I mean, you never know. Danger is everywhere, and I think it's important. I want to point that out because this man is from Christchurch, New Zealand, and they had an incredibly horrible earthquake that occurred in 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
I've used this anecdote a few times before. So obviously, when I'm covering crises, I've been in dangerous situations, or I've been very, very close to major terrorist attacks twice. One was in Afghanistan, in Kabul, quite recently, an Islamic State attack on a hospital. But the second one was in central London. Despite the danger, I want to ask you, man, why do you keep doing it? What inclines you to keep putting yourself in these positions of danger, potential danger, to cover these kind of stories for people? So it's a difficult question, one that's got a couple of answers. There's a couple of different levels. On one hand, I can say, look, it's my job. I know how to do it. I'm used to it by now. It's like, oftentimes these sort of situations become quite normal, and for most conflict reporters, once you've covered a couple of conflicts, you sort of know your way around, you know how to deal with the emotions, the fear and the nervousness lessens.
What I really want to ask you that I think a lot of people are wondering here is what does the significance of the over 100,000 Russian troops at the borderline right now in the east mean in regards to this conflict? Is that something unique? Is that something new?
So what's different about this situation is, so they're not just in the east though, is if you look at a map of Ukraine and how it's kind of surrounded by Russian-controlled territories, you have the separatist movement in the east, there are troops on that border. There are also troops to the north, there are Russian troops in Belarus, there are Russian troops, on the northeastern border near Kharkiv, and there's also quite a big Russian buildup in Crimea. And so effectively, if the Kremlin gave the order and all of these troops wanted to move in, they could literally sandwich Ukraine from all different directions. There's even a breakaway region of Moldova called Transnistria that, hypothetically, Russians could come in from there as well, although that's much less likely. But what it basically means, it does not mean there is definitely going to be a war. It just means that if Russia wanted to, or if Vladimir Putin wanted to, he could order an attack very quickly and with very, very little notice.
So this conflict's been ongoing since 2014. So in relation now to that time, do you believe that there's more military presence now? That's what I want to know. I'm curious about that.
So it's a kind of a difficult question. Well, because what happened in 2014 was it was not like a conventional military invasion in the way that we might think of, oh no, there's, the Germans invaded Poland or invaded Russia, sending all their troops across the border. What happened in 2014 was very sort of sleight of hand, underhand. So in Crimea, for instance, you had what they called little green men, which is, Russians turning up in Crimea on tourist visas and, who were actually troops and troops coming into the Russian controlled base in Simferopol and effectively taking it over, straight away without a fight. And then in the east, Russia never officially declared that it was invading the east. Instead, what they did is they sent what they called a humanitarian convoy full of arms and weapons to local Ukrainian-backed separatists. They also supplied them with training. They supplied them with, all sorts of weapons, and there are pretty credible reports that there have been a lot of Russian troops in those eastern areas as well, even though Russia has never officially declared that yes, that they are a party to that conflict.
I mean, I hope to God it doesn't come to that. Of course, it would be absolutely tragic and really, it would be a massive humanitarian catastrophe. But I was someone who a couple months ago was thinking, no, this is just more bluster. This is not going to lead to anything. And now, people a lot smarter than me on this matter, generally very conservative as well on what they think Russia would do or intends to do here, are making some pretty dire predictions, which doesn't leave me very optimistic.
Okay, well, it's interesting to hear this alternative perspective because we have an informed journalist here that's here to cover this story. So I'm very grateful that we're here, man, and that you can share that with me. And I've been really trying to tell the Canadian people not to worry so much about the situation in Ukraine. And now we have a professional journalist here that's freelance for many of the large news outlets, both in our country and internationally, telling us a little bit of a different story. I think it's important, personally. My opinion is that we take into consideration everybody's ideas and opinions in regards to this situation.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for having me on.